Adaptation is a wondrous thing. When a piece of art makes such an impact that it transfers from one medium to another, it's shared with an audience that may have never even been aware of it. And what's more, it can then be enjoyed in a totally new way. You know, Mary Shelley writes Frankenstein. It gets adapted into a play. It gets adapted into a film. Becomes a musical. Becomes 1980s The Monster Squad. There are all of these different interpretations, different angles, different facets you can explore. And nerds tend to get very gatekeepy when one of their favorite things gets adapted into a new medium. We don't get to choose how something is adapted. We don't get to choose the hands that write it, the hands that direct it, the hands that produce it or distribute it. And yet, what we do get to do is complain about it because it doesn't meet the high standards that we've set with our appreciation and our love of this thing. But what is forgotten sometimes, I think, is that when something is adapted, especially when a book is adapted to a film, someone who might have been totally unaware of a story that might be precisely for them will suddenly get it twofold. Why do I bring this up? I bring this up because though I was aware of Simon Stalenhag's work, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, I'm probably not, I had never read The Electric State. But I've been hearing about it quite a lot over the last few weeks because Netflix just released an adaptation of the book directed by the Russo brothers and adapted. The screenplay was written by Marcus and McFeely, who worked on the Russos for Avengers Endgame. And to hear the internet talk about this film, it's the worst travesty that's ever been committed to celluloid. That it does a disservice to Stalenhag's work. It does a disservice to films in general. That it's just a terrible massacre. Here's my counterpoint to that. Had the movie not come out, I would have probably never picked up the book. I do have Tales from the Loop by Stalenhag, but I had not delved into The Electric State. I hadn't picked up his other book, Things from the Flood. And not because I wasn't interested, just because I knew it was out there, but my interest was low. And because this film exists, and because people were so angry about it, that inspired me to pick up the book and actually read it for myself. And it's great. It's weird and haunting. I mean, haunting is that is the emphatic word there. But it is spooky and melancholy, and I'm still thinking about it. And I saw the film. I watched the whole thing. It's fine. Maybe this is because the internet has already eviscerated this film. Maybe it's because I'm old. It's a movie. It's a very different story than the book. It is a straight middle of the line, middle of the road, popcorn family movie about robots. That is not what the book is about. I would be fine watching that movie with my kids. And from the interviews that I've read with the Russos, from what I've read from Stalenhag himself, that was pretty much their goal, to take the bones of this story and turn it into a popcorn blockbuster. I think the artist in me is disappointed because, having read the book now, the story that it has to tell is so strange and touching in a really upsetting way. Of course, that's the kind of story that I want to see reach a larger audience, but I can't be mad at this movie because the movie brought me to the book, and the book isn't going anywhere. The book is mad and creepy and yucky and beautifully illustrated, as all of Stalenhag's work is. And the movie is, it's a Netflix movie. It'll fall down the memory hole very, very soon. But that is, again, not a strike against it. It is a perfectly fine movie. There is nothing wrong with it. It's silly. It is competently made. It's a big nothing burger. It's sort of like, and I don't want to get off on a soapbox here. I will, but for my fellow nerds out there, do you remember when the internet lost its collective mind because the MCU released Ant-Man Quantumania, and for some reason everyone decided Ant-Man Quantumania was like the worst MCU film that had ever been made? It's not. It is a completely average MCU film. There are many worse Marvel movies than Quantumania. There are many better. Actually, you know what? I would go so far as to say there aren't many that are better. There are most that are exactly at that level. And we've turned the internet into this we've turned the internet into this amazing echo chamber of just a bunch of angry nerds yelling at each other. Adaptations. They run the gamut from stories that you can't wait to see on film because you want to see how a filmmaker interprets it. And in those rare times when you get a really good filmmaker and you get a really good story together and it's just a match made in heaven. Fight Club is very close to the book in some places, but especially the end diverges. And without the film Fight Club, I never would have found out about Chuck Palahniuk. I never would have. I stopped recording so that I could pick up my copy of Haunted, which is signed by Chuck Palahniuk, and I was going to show it to you, but then I remembered my Christian name is in here, so you're just going to have to take my word for it that I have a signed copy of Haunted. I saw him read in Santa Monica in, gosh, I want to say 2005, 2004, 2005. Yeah, it's great. I haven't read one of his books in a while, but gosh, that was a big phase, wasn't it? Do we all have a Palahniuk phase? If you haven't yet, you should. I completely got derailed here. There are bad adaptations. I'm not gonna mince words here. Some adaptations are terrible and should never have been attempted. But, some adaptations, I think I cut this part out of my last ASMR book review. Sorry, I've had to cut a few times here because I've still got just a teensy little bit of congestion that keeps welling up here, and so I don't want to cough into the mic. So sorry about that. I think the only truly perfect adaptation is The Princess Bride, which was written by William Goldman, both the book and the screenplay. And so I love The Princess Bride. I read the book to my sister either 2 or 3 summers in a row when she was a kid. And the book, if you've only seen the movie, the book is almost exactly the movie. It's just more of it. So you get the backstories for Inigo, you get the backstories for Fezzik and the Hunchback. You get the Zoo of Death, which is great. It's everything that's in the movie is there. You just get a little bit more. And because Goldman is writing both of them, it's just such a perfect one-to-one. This is the story that he had in his head. And I thoroughly encourage you, if you've only seen the movie, read the book and read it to your kids because it's so much fun. Anyway. But most adaptations will take liberties, or they'll find a certain interpretation and they'll explore that. The only adaptation I can think of that is truly baffling, and I would love to find out more about what the heck happened here, is Wanted. Some of you may remember this film. Some of you may not. It starred Angelina Jolie and James McAvoy very early in his career when he was occasionally doing action films. So the movie is about, if I'm remembering correctly, these secret assassins, and the big thing that they sold the trailer with was that you could curve bullets if you if you jerked your hand a certain way or something. And Angelina Jolie's coming out of the bath at one point. That was also a big trailer moment. Anyway, spoilers for this film that came out 1,000 years ago. What you find out in the movie is that the people that these assassins are assassinating, the assassins get the names of these people from a magic loom that is weaving a blanket? Anyway, apparently the way that the thread is woven into itself spells out a name or something, and that's the name of the person they have to kill. I don't know. Anyway, for those of you who've seen this movie and thought that was ridiculous, or those of you who've never seen the movie and think this sounds ridiculous, I'm going to tell you what Wanted is based off of, if you don't know. Wanted was a comic book that was written by Mark Millar. It was a 6-issue, I think, limited series, and it was the edgiest, most ridiculous, over-the-top, violent, foul-mouthed comic, and the basic plot is all of the supervillains from a comic book universe. It's very heavily based on the DC universe. It's not DC, but it's basically that. But there are some like Marvel-ish heroes mixed in here and there. All the supervillains teamed up, killed all the superheroes or incapacitated them, and then rewrote reality using all of their collective powers so that they rule the world. And the story follows a young nobody who's actually the son of one of these very powerful supervillains, and he was modeled. His face was modeled on Eminem, the rapper Eminem, which tells you when this comic came out. So that's one where it's just like, I don't know how you get from point A to point B. I can't fully recommend Wanted because I don't think that it has aged particularly well. It's still fun to read in the sense of like, Millar is clearly just having fun being as raunchy and rude and ridiculous as possible. I don't think it's meant to be taken seriously. It's pretty nuts. But that's another example where I'm pretty sure I'd never heard of the comic, and then I saw a trailer for the film and thought, okay, well, I'm never seeing that. That looks like garbage. But then, some years later, somebody in passing had mentioned, like, oh, it's nothing like the comic. And I'm like, oh, there's a comic? Oh, yeah, but it's not the same. And I remember reading it, and I enjoyed it. So, I guess with this very long preamble, all I'm trying to say is, even a bad adaptation can lead you to good works of art. I am not saying Wanted by Mark Millar is a work of art. But, there is art in it. Somebody worked very hard drawing all of that viscera. So yeah, you know what? I'm even going to include Wanted in there as art. Now, to the actual book at hand. The Electric State by Simon Stalenhag. If you're not familiar with Stalenhag's work, he draws these beautiful, semi-realistic vistas, windswept plains and, sort of rustic houses. And his first book, Tales from the Loop, mixed these vistas with these huge robots, like looming out of the mist. And you would see these sort of very 1950s style, almost like Americana cars and houses and landscapes mixed in with these very boxy, very futuristic looking robots. And it's funny, I have Tales from the Loop, but I don't think I've ever actually sat down and read the story. I've just sort of enjoyed the artwork, and I'm going to rectify that now. The Electric State is a dual narrative between a girl named Michelle, who's making her way through this absolutely ravaged alternate version of the 90s, and possibly a government worker named Walter, who is being monologued to by an unnamed person who saw some real bad shit during the war. The story of the book takes place after a war that was fought between drones, there were no soldier casualties during the war officially, but civilians were collateral damage. And a strange fact of the matter is all of the soldiers who piloted the drones gave birth to stillborn children after the war. And that is the story opens with that fact. And things get more upsetting from there. The technology that was used to create the drones that were used to fight this war was later pivoted to basically an entertainment system. And these headsets fit over people's heads. And now at the 6th generation of these headsets, people just refuse to take them off. They spend all day becoming zombies, effectively. And it's not even explained totally in the book what it is they're experiencing when they're in this headset. They do go into some detail that their minds, the neurons in their brains, become part of the collective neurons of everyone who is attached to it. So there's an implication that it is so addictive to become part of this hive mind that people don't want to be apart from it. And as Michelle wends her way through a broken United States, she primarily is traveling through a state called Pacifica, which seems to be something that was cobbled together from the Pacific Northwest, so it's California, Washington, and Oregon. The book is beautifully vague in a lot of details, and as she moves further and further north up the western coast, things get more chilling, and civilization becomes much more, I don't want to say wild. She sort of has already moved through the wild parts, this sort of dead zone where there's all this dust. But it becomes more desolate. And when she eventually reaches a point where she's no longer encountering really any people that aren't part of this collective hive. And without spoiling too much, she reaches an area where the people attached to these devices have begun to build creatures that are part robot and part organic material. And what these combined creatures want becomes very clear. And I've been on somewhat of a Lovecraft kick lately, and this isn't, I don't want to call this Lovecraftian because it really is its own thing, but it is Lovecraftian in the sense that the best Lovecraft stories make your skin itch and your mind go to those shadowy corners of existence where there's clearly something bigger going on, and we're just these chattering little monkeys in the face of abyssal consciousnesses that we can't even begin to comprehend, and that we're just ants to them. And I keep wanting to call this beautiful. It is beautiful, but it's also disturbing and horrifying. All right, I'm going to get a little political. This is not a good time for the United States right now. I know some people disagree with that. That's fine. In my opinion, this is not a good time for the United States right now. And reading this story, it's about a United States that has completely fallen in on itself. People are no longer taking care of each other because they're completely absorbed into their own headsets, into their own little digital worlds, their virtual worlds that don't really exist, except I think the best way I can explain it is in the movie is about this whole thing about like robots want freedom or something. The movie is basically Ready Player One and the creator, and that's the plot. And they make it so that the headsets are kind of like everyone gets to enjoy their own little virtual world. That's not what's happening in the book. People are essentially forsaking their participation in life to just allow themselves to be sucked up into this other consciousness. And there are vast tracts of the United States that are now just empty wastelands because people have curled up and died, essentially. You find out that these headsets, for whatever reason, can keep people alive long past when they would be dead. There's one person that ends up like at the bottom of a pool, and she's been down there for hours, but she's still somehow alive. Not for long, but people who don't eat, people who don't drink, they just keep going, and their mouths keep moving even as their bodies atrophy. And they did this to themselves. That is the most political thing about it, is that we did this to ourselves. We allowed ourselves to be sucked up into this thing because we stopped taking care of each other. And we gave ourselves over to this other thing that we saw coming and didn't stop. And now it's here, and it is cannibalizing what is left of our civilization after we fought this war that seems to have had no purpose other than to just ravage the country. This book is about this moment. It's about a lot of things, but it is prescient in a way that I don't think Stalenhag intended. But it resonates. It resonates hard. And it's just, the art is great. And you just see these people with their just mouths agape, just sucked into these things. And you know what? You kids need to stay off your phones. It's also about that. I love a good scary story. And the ending is very ambiguous. You really can read it as either hopeful or completely despairing, and I love that about it. It is a work of art. It is, and what's great about it is that this story would work without the art. Like, some of the stretches where it's really just them journeying from place to place, it definitely wouldn't have the same impact without the art. But the story itself, it still draws you in. It still gives you the heebie-jeebies. But the fact that it is accompanied by this art is just, I love books. I love reading. I love a good story. And it is magical to read something like this that comes from one person's mind and their pen and their paintbrush, and they are weaving for you a story that is personal and weird and enthralling. I can't recommend it enough. The movie is fine. The movie is not the book. It's not even close to the same story. And if you love the book, I can see how you would be absolutely crushed or even angry at the movie. But me, I'm just happy that the movie directed me to the book. Because this book is great. This book will have a prominent place on my shelf. I will come back to this book. I am going to be thinking about this story for a long time. The imagery in it, the ideas of it, how just truly unsettling this story is, and how much you care about this girl and what she's gone through and what she's trying to do, even after, she is in a world that does not give a shit about her and has abandoned her and so many other children. And she's still trying to make a connection, still trying to do something that is important to her and to her family. And it's got some good monsters in it. There's some really freaky stuff in here. Stuff that I don't even know if I can talk about on YouTube. So I will refrain. But yeah, if you like weird fiction, this is as weird as it gets. And,